All right. Hey, Corkies. Hello, hello, hello. We are back for episode 3. And we have another special guest. This season is all about the special guest that we are offering all our Corkies. And so today we have Ticaro Heath, who is here to share his experiences in counseling. And so welcome, welcome, Ticaro. How are you
Welcome.
today?
I'm good. I appreciate you ladies allowing me to come on and have a word with you guys. I've taken time to look over what you guys do and just real quick want to give you guys your flowers, man. I appreciate anybody who takes the time out of their schedule to, really promote awareness, whether it's mental health, whether it's saving seals, whatever it is you're passionate about. And you guys are really taking a step forward to really promote that. And I do appreciate it. And again, I'm happy to be here and talk with you guys for a while.
Oh,
You.
thank you. Yes, thank
Great.
you. And we love to talk to people, of course, and run our mouth and really, really like to talk to the men because we love
Oh,
dibble and dabble and hear the male perspective. So we're really interested today. So this should be really fun.
it'll be fun.
So right out the gate, we have to know what prompted you to seek out counseling because we know
Ooh.
that you did that. So what made you go?
So my prompt to find counseling was a little bit simple. So I worked a lot, like a lot of, you know, guys that's in their 20s, you're trying to make as much money as you can. But I worked in a stressful side of town, right? So one of the things that I found out was that my job actually offered like 6 free counseling sessions for stress,
Hmm.
right? And because we worked a lot of hours, for me, it was anytime hours. Like you couldn't see me without a laptop or a cell phone in my hand doing something. And the prompt, like the want to go ahead and do it, wasn't even because they offered it. I was actually telling someone else to do it. I was like, yeah, my job, they offer this. Like maybe you should look at your job and do it. And it was just a return question for me, right? I was like, well, have you done it? And I had to look with that look on my face, like, no, I haven't. So I gave it a shot. And, I think that was like that very first step of diving in. Like I didn't do any research. I didn't really know what to do. It was an email and like, hey, follow this link and go from here. So that's pretty much how it got started for
Oh, okay. And
So
you said you were in your 20s when you did that?
me. Yeah, I was late 20s. So that was probably about maybe about 5 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago when that happened.
Okay.
Now,
okay. So how long were you thinking about counseling before you took that first step? Like, were you thinking about it for a few months?
no, I wasn't. I wasn't. Like it's funny, right? Because I don't even want to say it's most guys. I think it's just most people. Like when you get into this rhythm of life, right? Like you change from whatever it was from your high school ages to early college or whatever it may be, and you get a job, and it just becomes a rhythm. You go to work, you pay the bills, you try to slide a vacation in there once or twice a year, and that's what it becomes. And you just kind of learn to deal with whatever it may be throughout the times, that whether it's stressful job or stressful relationships or financial issues or whatever it may be, you just learn to deal with it. It's not, it was never, honestly, it was never even something that I even considered was an option of helping myself. It wasn't until later when you start to realize that the same things that you sign up for benefits for jobs, right? We look for benefits in jobs and say, I need a good dental plan, I need a good medical plan, but you don't really put into perspective how much that mental part of those things need to be addressed and pampered as well. So yeah, it wasn't even an offer for me. It was just something that kind of just happened. And one of those days I said, I'm gonna give it a shot.
Okay. And you talk about just you had been living and dealing, and do you realize now looking back like what you were using to kind of get by and deal with your life
Oh
before
yeah.
counseling?
Oh yeah. Like you realize that we all cope in different ways, right? And it's a lot of ways that people don't realize that they cope. Like I always, now that I've been in it a little while, I realize it with people. The first thing that triggers me when someone says they love to sleep, that's the first thing that comes, because we don't consider sleep as the getaway that it can be from what actual life is. We consider drugs and alcohol or partying or anything else to be that. But you'll be surprised at how many people who are actually close to us will be like, I've had a bad day, I just want to go to bed.
Mhm.
Or, like it's been rough right now, I just really need this nap, or it's their getaway. So I think it first comes down to realizing back then for me, like what were those things that I was using to escape those stressful times, or those times that I really should have been looking for some way of healing or strength.
Cool. How did you know where like to search for the counselor? Or did that link that they give you, like, did that point you the right direction?
Yeah, to be honest, looking back at it now, it didn't even point me in the right direction, but it showed me like it was just, here's this random road here that you can take, and I guess it was a direction, but it wasn't it wasn't until I got into it, like looking at it, and then it's a completely different world. Like that's why I commend you guys so much, because you think counseling or therapy or anything is just that, and you don't realize that people specialize in certain categories, that people, like, you can't just be like, I need some direction and counseling, let me talk to you, and they're like, oh, what exactly are you looking for here? And so for me, I was completely blindsided by it. Like it took me 2 or 3 days just to like go through and look at people and decide, okay, I think this is what'll work, like, because you don't really find, like, especially starting out, you don't really find somebody that just say like, I specialize in stress management. Like there's people who like, no, I do this, and this, and you kind of have to take a step back, look at yourself, and realize, is work the only thing that's stressing me out, or do I have other places in life that I need to fill buckets on, because it's a carryover. So I had to do that, and that was probably the most difficult part of it all, because you're so weary, like you're so nervous, you're so it's the fear of the unknown, right? Like you don't know who you're choosing, you don't know what this person has going on, you don't know if they fit you. It's like, it's almost like speed dating. You're just, hey, what can you do for me? Hey, this is what I need. Nope, next seat. Like, and it becomes that. And you don't really get to hear a lot of people that talk about they went through trial and error when it comes to choosing a counselor, choosing a doctor, choosing somebody. Like you don't hear that. It's typically, I went to this person because I was referred to this person and they screwed me up more, so I had to go to another person. It's never the aggressive approach where I'm going looking and seeking for this one thing, and then you didn't work out for me, and that's not what I'm looking for, so I'm going here. Right. So that was the most difficult, finding that person, or finding that car that fits you, finding that house that suits you, finding that dog that fits your personality, right? Like that was the toughest part of it all. Everything else was just, putting in the work.
Are there any questions that you asked that were specific to your counselors that was helpful in picking the right person for you? Any questions that stand out in your journey?
The when I was first starting, the question that I asked was, "Are you stressed?" Because to me, I couldn't understand how someone who's doing counseling, like I'm not your only person you're seeing. Like, are you stressed out in your life too? Because I don't do well in hypocritical situations. Like I really don't like situations where I'm coming to you for stress and you're telling me that you're twice my age and you've never been stressed about anything.
Right.
Because either I'm gonna feel like you're just trying to like baby powder pamper me, or you're lying to me. Like we're not getting off on a good foot right now, because even if you aren't lying to me, you can't truly, in my mind, help me if you can't tell me steps that you've done that can relate to what I'm doing. And then and I think that's difficult bridge to meet in the middle of, because you guys take the time out of your lives to learn these steps to help people, but us on the other side are looking to meet you in a space where you're not the counselor, you're a person who we can talk to, who can relate to what you need.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for me to sometimes put that aside and be like, you have to learn these skills. Like, they have to learn those skills to help you. But when it comes to initially looking for someone, that's what we're hoping to see is like, yeah, I've been through stressful situations. Like, I've been through a divorce and I've lost jobs and I've did this and that. Like, it makes it relatable to allow us to deflate a little bit to be able to get that type of help that we need from you.
And I tell my clients that I have a therapist too, which is true. And I think that helps them to find me more relatable as well. And they're like, oh, okay, so it's not so taboo, or like,
right,
a perfect person. Like, nope, I have struggles as well.
Right. And that's big. That's really big, because yeah, I would prefer my therapist to have a therapist. Like, I would prefer that, man. Like, because we kind of diving a little bit off the pier a little bit. Like, that was the biggest thing for me. Like, I did not tell anyone that I was in therapy or I was seeking counseling. It was something that I did on my own, and I didn't speak on it because it still felt taboo. It still felt like, you're you're a big brawly man, right? Like, why do you need to figure out different ways to, relieve stress or work on whatever it is mentally that you have going on? So for a while, it was that thing where it was like, yeah, I'm holding you to this standard. I want you to have people that you talk to, but I'm not telling anybody that this is what I'm going to. And I look back on it now and see how, like, you can't go to get help for stress, but then you're still stressed on the back end about how you're holding this because you're worried about how it's going to make you look or what it makes you look like, so yeah, I'm with it. You got to have a therapist to be my therapist. That's just how it goes.
That's a requirement.
Yeah, that's number one.
I always think of that because I'm also a counselor that has a counselor. But then nowadays, especially because Ariel and I have this joke about us being raggedy. We're not raggedy. We've come to the conclusion that our raggedy is not the same as everyone else's raggedy. But there's just not another word for it. Or I just don't like the words for it. But is there a certain level of transparency or lifestyle that you don't want to see your counselors have or behave in? Like, you don't want them to be too human in certain ways?
No, I want to feel like I am talking to a human. Okay. I think that's so, I think it goes across the board with so many things. Like, I don't have any kids, but I would as a child myself, right? Like, I want to know that my mom made mistakes, right? Like, as a person who is working on my career, I want to know that the person that's mentoring me has lost jobs. I want to know that they've done things. Like, I want to know that I want to know that if my therapist smokes and drinks, I want to know that, like, because I want to feel like that his Friday night is like my Friday night. Like, I want to know that, because, like, there's nothing wrong with striving for perfection. I don't think that there is anything wrong with that. But I also think that perfection is the eye of the beholder. Like, it's like, I want to know that I want to know you were a baby too, right? Like, I want to know that you grew up. I want to know that you had to go through the same struggles or a type of struggle that someone else did, even if it's not my struggle, right? Like, I want to know that that there was something happened, you had to overcome it, and you're better or worse from it. Like, that's what I have to have. No, I don't want to know all your personal business. That's not it. But I do want to feel like, if I say, yeah, a couple of coworkers and I wanted to, hang out. They wanted to have drinks, so I went to have drinks. Like, I don't want to feel like I'm gonna be looked down upon because I decided to go have a drink or two, or I decided to have one too many, or whatever it may be, like, because we're trying to create a space that we both can feel safe in, not just me. Like, we both can feel safe in. Like, I need you to feel safe telling me something so we can create that dynamic, that relationship. Because if you feel like you can't tell me something because you're afraid it might trigger something, or it might, to me, that's a step back on your behalf, because you need to be able to handle that if it does trigger. So I need to have that from you to better myself, because we all know it, that you can talk to a stranger, you can talk to someone your whole life. It's gonna be learning on both ends. There's something that you're gonna learn from me, or you're gonna hear that I did, that you're gonna probably take to your personal life, and like, I was helping this guy, but he said something that was really profound, or really like stuck with me, and I think I'm gonna use that. Like, you can't, you as a counselor can't be shut off from that. And if I feel that, those every Thursday is probably gonna get cut short. So
yeah.
So yeah, that's how it is for me.
So were there any qualities in a counselor that you were really hoping to find, as far as like gender or personality traits or like ethnicity? Like, or were you kind of saying, like, when you were doing your search, like narrowing down um your counselors?
I think the man in me took over early. Like, I'm a guy, need to talk to a guy. Like, if I have a guy issue, I need to have like, and it's no offense to you guys, or women in general or nothing, but it's like, look, if you're not working 65, 70 hours a week, we can't even start this conversation. Like, that's how.
Yeah,
And
I feel though.
Yeah.
exactly. Like, but you don't think about that as a guy who's like, you're telling yourself everything you can to keep stepping in this direction, because there are always more excuses to not do it than it is excuses to keep moving. So you give yourself these ridiculous filters and standards that you got to hold people to, and then you end up like me. You meet with your first guy, and he's never worked with his hands in his life. He's never worked more than 40 hours. He's never done, he went to school, got a job, and been doing this ever since. And it's not that that was bad, but it's like, what exactly are we going to relate to? Not how you're going to help me, but how are we going to relate right now?
Right. Like, that's important to you, relating to your counselor.
Exactly. So I didn't have at first I had that I got to talk to a guy, but then you start to realize, and even you just take a 10-second Google search and look at how much it takes to be a counselor or to be a therapist, and you start, whew, yeah, they work a little bit more than me, so I'm gonna have to reel this back, and we gonna keep this thing straight on my knees. Like, we're gonna leave everything else out of it. And so it after that, I kind of really filtered down, and I didn't care about whether it was a man, whether it was a woman, whether she was black, white, whatever. It did not matter to me at all. I really just wanted to feel like some type of way I could read this description on who you are and what you offer, and you could help.
So with your current counselor, how did you decide, like, this person is for me? Or did you have a few counselors when you first started, like, kind of going?
Oh, this is number 5. I'm not afraid to say it. This is number 5. I went through it because part of it is me, right? Part of it is like, when you've never done something before, I've always been a throw me in the fire guy. Like, I will figure out how not to get burned. I'll make my moves and stuff. And so, first thing I realized early on, that stereotype question, the how does that make you feel?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not for me. That's not. I'm gonna feel like you're not listening. I'm gonna feel like you're just dragging out this time so this hour will be over with. Yeah, it's not for me. And so, like I said, I went through the first guy who I felt like I was completely unrelatable to. Like, this wasn't gonna work. Ended up, the next person I chose was a woman. She was in her mid-30s at the time. She was a Black lady, and she would ask me questions, and she'd see I would get frustrated when she asked me questions, and she asked me why, and I was like, I feel like you're reading a book to me. I just feel like I came to you, you asked me what I needed. I said, well, I'm in this direction because, I'm stressed from work, and I'm sure life carries over from that too. I'm just a stressed out person. Well, how much do you sleep? I sleep this much. What are your eating habits? I eat this much. And it's just like, and I'm like, come on, man. Like, and it's not that I don't want to give you the background of things, but I don't feel like you care when you dive in, like you're changing everything. If I tell you that I'm stressed and you ask me something related to that stress, not so much as to me looking for out. So, oh, well, if you get more sleep, maybe you won't stress as much. Or if you take some days off of work, it'll be better for you. Like, no, like that's everything in life is compound. And if you don't really dive into it and start seeing where those things are coming from, for me, I lose interest. So now I'm paying you for nothing, and I can honestly make you feel like you're doing me a good job. Like, how do you feel about today? So it was great. Absolutely. It was great. I think things are going great. How many more sessions we got? 3. Great. Yeah, that's cool. All right. Next Thursday, and get off, and you won't get a chance to even know that you're helping or not helping. So um we spoke on that a little bit, and we started kind of bumping heads a little bit more. And she was like, I feel like, we should go in separate ways. Like, I feel like you'll be helped in another way. You just find somebody else. Oh, perfect. Great. So I found it was another lady, and I immediately jumped on the first session. Like, hey, look, we can skip all the introductions. I am stressed out. And I need more than you asking me how my day is. I have a mother, I have sisters, I got people I can call to tell how my day is. Like, I'm stressed out, like, and I am a concrete block. You're not gonna get to me today. I need to dive into it. And she was like, okay. And I was like, I'm letting you know I'm gonna push you away. I'm that type of person. When we start getting into my emotions, like, because at this time I'm learning about myself more than I thought, but it's through anger and it's through frustration. And I'm like, this is supposed to be helping. Why is it not helping? And so she asked me, like, like, what makes you feel good? And I remember telling her, I was like, what's the best sleep you ever had? It's like, mine was always after I got into an argument or I cried. Like, even as a kid, you get a whooping, you cry. It's like the best sleep in the world. You don't think about it, but like you're out of it. Like, you get into a really emotional, draining argument where your brain turns off after it's over, and you sleep. Because of the surrounding part, you don't think about it, but that is some of the best sleep in the world, right? And so I'm like, the things that make me feel good is when I can really, I don't know. Is it me being like me being a rah-rah man amongst men? I don't know. But I always knew I needed to get it out, because I can sit and have a conversation all day and still feel the same way. And so we tried to have that type of a conversation, and it made it 30 minutes. And she's like, baby, look, I'm not, I can't pull that type of emotion out for you. And she was like, it's too combative. Like, she was like, you're gonna have to find someone. And she gave me a little direction. She's like, find someone with a background, not from just the mental health perspective, but were they an athlete before they started doing this? Did they manage a bunch of people? Those type things, to see where they're able to butt heads with you and still give you advice. Because one of the things that I've noticed in life for myself is that I can have an argument with you and we could be at each other's noses, and once we're done, like, it's completely gone. Like, that's my level of, like, because I got it out. I don't have to worry about it. And so I knew I needed that in therapy. So she gave me a guy. He wasn't, he was like that, but he wasn't open. He was more driving. Do this, almost like a football coach in a sense. Do this, do this. And so I got to the guy that I've been using now for the last year and a half. And it was really good because I told him straight out, hey, look, I need a combative type therapy, a combative type of counseling that we can be at each other and then shake each other's hands afterwards. Like, that's what helps me. And he didn't flinch. He's like, oh, absolutely, no problem. And I thought we were going to just jump into it. And we literally had the first session about just learning each other. The first session was, what are the things you like to do? This is what I like to do. This is what I didn't like. Let me tell you about what happened yesterday. And it was just like how we all were talking now, just a conversation. So the next time when I talked to him, I felt like I was calling someone who was more of a friend than it is, someone who I'm paying to help me out in life. And we created a structure where we do 6 weeks on, 3 weeks off, because it's a lot. It's a lot that goes into it. And it just works for me. You just have to know the type of person that you are. But it works for me. It works for me. And I feel like I've grown with that ever since.
And all right. So I think it's important for people to understand a little bit more about what you mean by combative. So when you're saying you need a combative counselor and you've actually found one now, what is combative to you?
You ever got into an argument with your sibling?
All the time.
Combative. It doesn't take any, and the reason I say it like that, it doesn't take any love away. It doesn't take any direction about what you guys are doing, but it's two people who are trying, who really are at each other because they want the best for each other. It has nothing to do with like, today's Tuesday, every Tuesday I gotta put these hands on you like that. It's not that. It's just that, especially if you're a younger sibling, right? You got somebody who's older, who's been through something early already, and then they see you walking down a road that you can't see, right? Like, that's my view on counseling. Like, you go to somebody and you start walking that, hey, this is what I got going on, and they, oh, yep, he's gonna crash and burn. Once he gets the boardwalk, it's gonna be bad. Like, and they try to fight you, but you're like, all you can see is that I'm moving. Sometimes you don't realize you're moving in the wrong direction. Sometimes you don't even feel yourself moving backwards. And more times than none, we don't see ourselves stuck because we start to go in a circle and we still feel ourselves moving, but don't realize we're not going in a direction. So that's what it's like for me, to have somebody who can take what I'm telling them, be able to know them on a different level so they can tell me where I was at 16, 20, 24, 28 and say, hey, this is the line that you're going on, but I'm in it. You can't always see everything. You don't see those changes that you're making unless you're focused on changes, like unless you focus on, and even with those changes, if I'm focusing on, how to be a better boyfriend, how to be a better son, a brother, whatever. You're not focusing on how to be a better employee, how to have a better credit score, how to have your tunnel vision most times at all times. Like, you almost got to have an obsession with something to really dive into it and work on it, but it doesn't leave you room to see everything else that's around it. So for me, the combative nature that I need to be addressed is that when I say, oh, no, I'm fine over there, you have to come back and be like, no, because this didn't tell me, and I'm going to defend myself. But I don't want to scare you away. It's my own personal confidence. Like, it's my personal confidence in where I feel like I'm going. To me, that's your job. That you have to do what you have to do to make sure that road that you see I'm on is going to be bad. You need to turn, and you have to have strength within yourself to do it. And as a counselor, I mentioned this earlier, like, I look for things like, contradictions, insecurities, all those things, because realistically, I'm going to attack them. I'm going to attack them because yes, absolutely.
Oh,
Because you have to think, like I mentioned this, I'm a concrete block. I don't want to talk about my true emotions. Like my biggest thing in what I'm doing now is trying to be more vulnerable, trying to be, more out and listening and really letting things soak in and die. But if there's a route that I can take to get away from it, I'm going to do it.
so you're deflecting.
And absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And how do you, I guess that's as a return question, like how would you typically deal with someone who realistically I am great at deflecting, great at it? How do you combat that without coming right back at it?
Oh, you can't. You have to come right back at it.
Exactly. So you
You have
can't
to call that person out.
exactly.
This is what you're doing. You cannot continue to do that, and it can't be allowed.
Right. And it's like you can I can deflect for an hour. I can deflect for an hour. I can turn, move. You can ask whatever questions you want. I can give you just enough for you to say, okay, so does that mean this or will that like, but if you're willing, for me anyway, to come right back at me and force me to give you something, now we're getting somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like now we're getting somewhere because it helps you figure out, okay, next week I gotta dive on this because he's this way.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Does this show up in other areas? Because I'm assuming that this is not just what you want, and this is how you act, just period.
no, it is. I didn't just wake up this way. Like 25th birthday, it's time to be combative. No, like I said earlier, one of my traits in life that I realized is that one, if there's something looming, or something that's like, there's an elephant in the room, I'm immediately addressing it, and then we can get it out of the way. And after that, it's almost like it never happened to me. I'm that way. But secondly, the biggest thing that I've realized that sits in that bucket of where my mental health is that my family, like really, if we are able to do just that, we are able to have tough conversations and still talk things out and everybody feel better after it. And they'll get rough. They'll get, we will talk to people, talk to people in however we need to do to get our point across. But the one thing that we always lead with is we're going to respect each other. Mm-hmm. We'll give somebody the floor. We'll let you say how you feel. And then you reciprocate that, right? Like you let them do that. And then you come to this, you come to this middle ground and understanding how both parties feel. Or as my family, 3-4 parties. It might be 3 or 4 different stories going on, right? But like, to be able to be that, and you got a bunch of like gladiators when it comes when it comes to having that conversation, it's being willing to sit in it and understand and realize what everybody else is saying, and then being able to articulate your own part and view to it. And that's a big step for me in life that has like catapulted me to make counseling really easy. Because when we do get through the concrete, I can tell you exactly how I feel. You don't have to question it. But it started from being able to have those conversations. Like me and my mother can completely disagree on something. Completely disagree. 2 far ends of the spectrum. And we'll go back and forth, but we have a level of respect for each other where we will turn off the mother and son part and talk to each other like adults, but we won't curse at each other. And I'm not putting my hands on nobody. There's nothing like that. But it's like, we're going to have this conversation. And the biggest asterisk behind it is there's no time limit. Things will get pushed in my family. If there's appointments, There's something to do. If we're in the middle of something that's that important, because it's really important to get this conversation through. We'll get to that. Ain't nothing in life that came to later. Like we're here. We're gonna do this. We're gonna be at each other's throats. But there's not a single night I don't go to bed. I'm not telling my mom I love her. There's not. I'm waking up in the morning and she's gonna be there with coffee, asking me, "You're just gonna sleep all day?" And it's only 5:45. It's just that never changes. And I think just like everything else in life, like you hear the stereotype about, they said most women look for a guy that reminds them of their dad. They said guys look for women that reminds them of their mother. I think that it's the same thing. The things that have helped you get through life that weren't coping mechanisms, things that were actually exercises and activities when it comes to your mental health, those are the things that you should seek out later, because those are the things that work. Like I grew up in a household where I might not have been the most listened to person, but once I was able to get to my points quickly, listen and return with respect, I was able to really get what I needed out, regardless if it meant me 30 minutes of crying and yelling or whatever. Like it was, I was able to get it out, and then you apply that and move on.
Do you see counseling as a lifelong journey for you, or do you feel like once you like reach a certain goal, you're gonna say, okay, I'm good?
Um, I don't know how to answer that without sounding like I'm on one end or the other. I feel like if you're going to counseling for a specific thing, I think that at some point has to come to an end. I think that in anything in life, like I think that this might be a little dramatic, but I don't know any other way to express it. If you have cancer and you're going to get chemo, at some point the chemo has to end. Like it might be a 6 week thing, a 6 month. At some point, the goal behind that is you to be cancer free and the chemo ends. However, that does not stop you from going to get checkups twice a year. And that's how I feel about counseling. I think that if you're going for something, there should be progression, and there should be a point where those goals are met or near met. And then it becomes a maintenance thing. I don't think you should have to go to counseling every single week or twice a week. I think that you, the same way that you should go to the doctor, to get checkups and things like that, I think that is healthy for you to 2 or 3 times out the year get a quick hour check-in. Like it's not that much money. It's not that much time out of your schedule. And you guys are some of the most, the most flexible people in the world when it comes to just having a chance to sit down and talk, especially in the world we live in now where we're able to do everything, via the internet, right? Like, so I think that part you have to incorporate in just life altogether. Like, get a mental check-in, see how how you're doing. Let them ask you some questions and see how you're doing, and make that a part of your routine, especially if you don't have people in your life that do it for you. Like, especially is that, like, I'm blessed enough to say I have people, my friends, family, if they don't hear from me for a while, they'll check in. Hey bro, what's going on? How you doing? What it looking like? How you do? You in there? You out of there? What's up? You need something? You don't need nothing? All right. Like, and these are friends, family that I had for years, that it's the same conversation if I talked to them yesterday or if I hadn't talked to them in 2 or 3 years. There's nothing that's behind it. They simply want to be there to check on you. And I think that when you don't have things like that in your life, you have to supplement, right? Like, you don't eat enough vitamins, you got to take a multivitamin in the morning, right? Like, you don't want to eat your greens and fruits. So I think that's the same thing with counseling. If you don't have those people in your life, if you feel like, you're alone in certain levels of life, you have to supplement that some way. For me, what I'm doing now is just being able to stay on track. So we're able to have those gaps, like I mentioned, in between what I'm doing. But even with that, like, we have extended gaps there too, because I don't have to do that. Like that's the other thing about the combative therapy. I don't have to yell and rah-rah every single time. I don't have to do that. And as you get better at those parts in life and you realize the pieces that are in your life that feel certain voids, then you're able to supplement properly. Like at a point I hope to get to where just, I'll go get a checkup twice a year. At that same point, I'll talk to him twice a year, maybe 3 times because you hope not to get sick as many times, but you go through stuff on a daily mentally. So maybe more of that for me personally anyway. But I hope to get to that point where it's 2 or 3 times a year, maybe a longer session, hour and a half, where you can really dissect how the last 3 or 4 months have been and, continue to grow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Look at you. And so you originally went in for stress management. Is that the thing that you consistently have been continuing to go for this whole time?
We still speak on stress. I think we just as working people need to. Like, how are you dealing with stress? How are you, what I'm saying? Like, I think as working people, we have to do that. But more so for me now is not stress, but strength. Like having mental strength. I don't think people put enough emphasis on that when we talk about the health, right? Like, and it's because, I started to notice little things within myself that hasn't been my all my life, on that perspective. Like you can be a mean person all your life and try to work in the other direction. Like, I don't want to be this anymore. But knowing that there are certain things for myself that were traits that I enjoy, were starting to slip. Like, for instance, waking up in the morning. I've always been a, early bird. I had no problem. It didn't matter what time I went to sleep. I didn't have a problem waking up, like getting up and getting started. And then I started to notice I'm hitting that snooze a little bit more, or I'm not getting the quality of sleep that I used to get. So now, by the time I actually do try to sleep, I feel like I haven't rested enough. And mentally, I hadn't been strong enough to push myself through it to create that same routines that I have been going through. So right now, that's what my focus have been, is creating routines in life that make me stick to them because they're necessities for what I have going on, and even creating new things, new routines that would kind of spark a little bit of, a little bit of fun, a little bit before and after, a little bit of something to be able to see like, okay, this might help. And those things have been helping me get back up and get moving. And I almost like having that new job that your clothes are already out for the next day, your book bag is packed, you're ready to go, like having that same feeling almost every day. Like, I'm ready to get up and tackle something every single day and getting back to that, because I've always been that way. I've never been the person who sleeps in, and never been the person who like could just lay around and not do nothing all the time. And I started to see myself being like that. And I wanted to go back to that side. So currently that's where I am, creating new routines and getting back to those good parts of myself that I enjoyed. So
Oh, be like you when I grow up. I've never been an early riser.
I heard news at least 4 times. I'm like,
oh, you know what? I've gotten a lot better the last, I think it's been 2 months. I've been doing a lot better, getting up at 5:30.
Yeah,
So, and it does make a big difference, because I'm
it
like,
does.
like I've gotten a lot more accomplished the last 2 months than I have the whole year by having
Yeah.
those extra hours in the morning.
Yeah.
So that's how people out here being rock stars, because they got those extra hours in the morning. So I
Yeah.
get it. So would that be your ultimate goal from, to get out of counseling, mental strength, or would it be something else you would say your ultimate goal is?
Yeah. I think I don't know if this actually explains it, but I think my ultimate goal, if I have to have one, I never even thought about having an ultimate goal, to be honest with you. But I think my ultimate goal would be to have the mental strength to make consistent decisions that are best for me and not someone else.
Mm.
That is probably my ultimate goal out of all of this, because, I I just like helping people. I like giving. I like, like seeing people happy. I like celebrating. I like being there with people when they're having good parts of life, even bad parts of life, right? But you start to see that you start to make decisions for everyone else, and it changes you. It simply changes you. You start, you know, you could be on the wild end of the spectrum like me, where I got to the point where I would get paid from my job and would not spend money on myself or something just in case somebody needed something, right? Like, and it's like, yeah, nah, nah, but it's been such a long habit. It's been such a long habit. It's been such a long habit of offering. Like, we don't really realize how much we just offer ourselves to people. And the biggest thing that I saw as I pulled myself back is, man, I got so much time, like so much time, and like so much just empty mental space where it's just like, ah, like what do I do? Like, like the things that I have this conversation a lot about finding the things that make me happy and the things that I'm passionate about. And you realize once you get to a space where you cleared out a few closets and you started seeing like the things that I enjoy, I'm doing, but I'm sitting back bored out my mind now, or I'm sitting back feeling like I could be doing something else, but you don't have that space filled anymore. Like, you're not worried about if this person needs your help or that person needs your help, or you're not worried about how you can do something for someone else. You're just kind of there. So it gives you that space.
Guilty at all about when you're doing stuff just for yourself now, or does it feel genuinely good?
It feels awkward. Like,
Okay.
I don't feel guilty about it. But I feel awkward doing certain things like for me, because I like doing small things that just like, it just makes me, I like putting a smile on somebody's face, right? Like, so, like I might, somebody tell me they had a great day or got a promotion or something, I might send them lunch, or I might do like, I like those type of things because a part of me just enjoys seeing people enjoy. Like, that's just, it's so simple. It is so simple. Like, I literally am the person who will drive who will drive 4 hours to give somebody a hug. Like, it's so simple to me, and it's so filling to be able to see somebody enjoying something. So I try to make myself, because it's a habit I have to break. So I try to make myself do something for myself. But it takes a few minutes to like to really work through it. But I started by doing like things that weren't immediate impact things to me. So like, I started doing things like giving myself goals of how much money I wanted to save, or fixing credit, or things like those type of things that where you'll do it, but you don't have anything in front of you to show for it right now. So it didn't make me, I didn't have to look at it and be like, man, I bought that. Nah, I don't even have to really like it. I just did it because so I started on that side where it's like, I get those pleasures later on. I look, oh man, my credit score went up 30 points, or oh, that's cool. Like, I did those type things, and giving myself goals of like, working on being debt free, by the end of next year, or, you know, purchasing a vehicle, whatever it may be, like those type things that keep me busy mentally, because I have to plan and be strategic and still make that fit into everything else in life. But I don't have to sit and say, why did I buy a $20 Starbucks cup because I hadn't bought myself this week? Like, so yeah, so that's where I'm at now.
Cool.
Thank
Cool.
you.
Yes. So we really appreciate you coming on and joining us today. You gave us a lot to think about.
Yeah,
Dropped a lot of nuggets and information.
yeah.
Very
I
good. Very
I
good.
appreciate you guys because for this is something I've never done before. Like I said, I didn't tell anybody I was in counseling or therapy. I didn't tell anybody I was doing this. Yeah. But like, for me, like I said, one of the things that I'm working on is being transparent, being a little bit more vulnerable, and having intention in life. And that's the thing, being able to speak that intention too, right? Like, and that's one of the reasons I asked you about doing it and really want, because I knew it would be something that would help me, because you guys might have, I've been nervous as ever doing this the whole time, right? Wondering what the next question is going to be, wondering, just how you guys are going to react to things, anything, right? But for me, it's a big help. It's my therapy of the week. It's been what I've needed to do and practice to see how comfortable I've gotten from before to now. So I can't tell you guys how much I appreciate doing this with you.
Oh, likewise. You did awesome.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, amazing. So, we wish you nothing but the best on your counseling journey, and absolutely love how you took the time to find your counselor. And so we hope that your combative counseling continues to work very, very well for you. It seems to be doing amazing. So,
Yeah, it does.
I appreciate it.
If y'all need it, go get you some combative therapy as well.
I recommend it. I'm telling you.
Look,
I recommend
I
it.
need some as well. I'm about to go find me a combative counselor. All right, y'all. This is the close of episode 3. Y'all stay tuned for episode 4. Bye.
Thank you, Corkies.